What's up, guys? I'm back at y'all today with another conversion video. As you can see behind me, we have a first gen Dodge. It's either a 92 or 93, early 91. It's intercooled, so we're going to be putting an Nv4500 in it, swapping away from the Getrag G360. So let me show you guys what we got. So to put an Nv4500 in a first gen, you need a second gen adapter plate, and this could be for Nv4500, 5600, or any of the other automatics that first gens did not come with. I got the stock one right here, you can see. The second gen adapter plate is a lot thicker. These are pretty much flush, and then these have, I don't know what that is, an inch, 3/4 of an inch, something like that, recessed. They're deeper. So we're gonna set that. I got a whole pile of those that are junk. So we got a second gen adapter plate to start off with. The Getrag and the Nv4500 use the same clutch. So we got a brand new Flywheel, pressure plate, clutch disc. This was a 2-wheel drive transmission. I went through it, swapped it over to 4-wheel drive. The factory MP205 transfer case bolts right up. This one is missing the 29 spline coupler that goes on the output shaft and the input shaft of the transfer case. So this truck came to me already disassembled from another shop that hadn't touched it in several years. So the owner had it hauled over here, and pretty much every single thing is here except for the spline coupler. But I'm not gonna be able to do this whole swap in one day. I'm just trying to get the transmission and transfer case in right now. That way I can get drive shaft measurements and get these sent off. And I don't know if it's gonna end up shorter or longer. This is actually my first time swapping a first gen. So if it was a second gen or third gen, I've got every single measurement possible written down for those. But I'm not familiar with the length of a Getrag, and then you've got the different thickness adapter plate. So I'm just gonna have to throw it up in there and bust out the tape measure and see what we gotta do. So I'm just trying to get the adapter plate, the clutch, and the transmission in today, as well as the transfer case, but it's gonna end up having to come back out, so I can slide that coupler in there, but I can get it ordered and put in, because I know these will take about a week or two to get done. As far as interior wise go, it was already a manual, so it's already got pedals, it's already got a hole cut for the shifter. The hole in the floorboard for the shifter has to get cut back farther. The Getrag, the shifter comes up through the top of the transmission, and the Nv4500 comes through at the rear, or I guess kind of the middle of it. So we're gonna have to do some metal work on the floor pan. I've read online, if you're really careful, you can cut this piece out of the floor pan and set it back over the factory hole. So we'll see how that turns out. See what we gotta do there. The clutch, master, and slave cylinder, the hydraulic set, they are exactly the same. They just bolt up differently on the Getrag bell housing, but the actual slave cylinder is the same. You just flip it around and it bolts in to the factory spot on the 4500 bell housing. What else? Oh, we're gonna also have to figure out the 4-wheel drive shifter, because there's a big bracket that bolts right here. So your 4-wheel drive shifter comes down through the floorboard, and it's got a big bracket that bolts here on the side of the Getrag, and then it's got a linkage that goes between it and the transfer case. So we're also gonna have to figure out something. So on early second gens, they have the same thing, but it's on this side, the 4-wheel drive shifter. It's a driver's side drop transfer case. And so they put the bracket on this side. So they've got these holes drilled out in the tail housing for your shifter bracket. So I'm thinking maybe we can get away with drilling and tapping out this little casting right here, and then maybe building a brace off of like these 2 bolts, or maybe one of the shift tower or shift top bolts, something. So we'll have to figure out the shifter, the 4-wheel drive shifter bracket. But that's about it. I mean, as far as things I don't know of, the floor pan and the 4-wheel drive shifter. I also don't know if the starter is the same, but that's, I mean, all you got to do is hold that up there, and if it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, we'll just run down to the parts store and get a, I like running 6-7 starters on everything, so we'll get a 6-7 starter if we have to get a new starter. But yeah, that's about it. Floor pan, 4-wheel drive shifter, starter, 29 spline couplers missing. Other than that, this truck hasn't ran in several years because obviously it doesn't have a transmission in it. It does have a freeze plug blown out where the block heater is, so we're going to replace that before we test drive it, obviously. I also don't know about the speedometer cable because this one's broke off. There is a new one in a box in here, but it looks like there's still a piece missing. As far as the cross member goes, we're also gonna have to figure out a cross member mount. I'm gonna have to fab one up. In the last swap video I did, I kind of talked about how 3rd gens, you don't have to fab anything up. 1st gens, you definitely do because they're way different. There's the original Getrag. Supposedly this customer had it rebuilt. A shop pulled it out, rebuilt it, and never put it back in, and it's been sitting upright, and it's full of rainwater. It's been sitting like that for years. They lost a bunch of pieces like the throwout fork to the bell housing. So we're just gonna go to stuff that's readily available. Everything with Nv4500 you can get off the shelf. So yeah, let's jump into this thing. So I'm up underneath the truck. I've got the 2nd gen adapter plate here, and I've got the bolts for it. I'm gonna put some Loctite on them, get this put up in here. It doesn't look like the rear main's leaking at all. Hopefully it doesn't start leaking. Like I said, this truck's been sitting for several years. Hopefully it doesn't start leaking, you know, once this guy starts driving it again. But if it does, you know, that's just luck of the draw. So I don't have one on hand, and this one is very dry, so we'll just say it's good. So I'm gonna get these bolts Loctited and put in here. Okay, so I got the adapter plate in. One thing I did notice, these holes are full of dirt and debris, so I'm gonna get my air blower, blow them out, squirt some WD-40, PB Blaster, whatever in there, see how well they clean up, maybe get a tap and just chase the threads and clean them up. Then I'm gonna get a wire wheel and clean off the crank flange and get the flywheel put in here. So I actually managed to find 7 of the 8 bell housing bolts, and I found 2 of the 3 starter bolts. So I'll consider that a win, considering that this truck came to me with just a handful of bolts thrown in the floorboard. So, and I found my tap. So you can see I'm just cleaning out these holes here. Not too bad, just a little dirty. Oop, that one's at too much of an angle. I have to tilt the motor down to get some of these, or do them by hand. Pretty full of crud, but they're cleaning out. Okay, so we got the majority of them clean. The motor's tilted down, so I'm gonna have to get a couple of these by hand, but that's no big deal. So yeah, let me finish that up. I'm gonna probably run through them a couple more times and blow all the dirt out with my shop air. So let me get that done for you. All right, so I actually ended up pulling the adapter plate back out of the truck so I could get to those ones up there. And then also I thought if these were full of dirt, you know, the ones for the starter probably were too. So in my mind, it was easier just to pull this back off, clean all these out, and then the starter holes, so I don't have to deal with them later and fight them up under here and from the top. So work smarter, not harder. But anyway, now I got to tighten these adapter plate bolts back up, and we'll go from there. All right, I got those adapter plate bolts tightened down. I got our crank flange wire wheeled off with the wire wheel on a grinder. Nothing too crazy. You don't want to actually use a grinding disc. You want to keep this nice and flat. Just clean it up. Make sure it's got a clean surface. You don't want your flywheel to wobble, and that'll cause a lot of problems. So got all the flywheel bolts here. I'm gonna grab the flywheel and we'll get back to y'all. Okay guys, so a little trick I've learned. You always want to Loctite your flywheel bolts, and that could be flex plate bolts too if you're doing an automatic. You always want to Loctite those. And then a little something extra I do, put some Loctite on the crank flange. You, especially me as a shop owner, you don't want to have a warranty come back. You don't want a truck to leave and the dude drive 100 miles, 200 miles, whatever, and the clutch come loose, because then you'll be buying a crankshaft, you'll be replacing the motor. You know, if this stuff comes loose and wobbles and these holes get egg-shaped out. So Loctite everything. It's better to deal with it, you know, for the next guy that has to replace this or whatever. It's better to deal with that than having to deal with damage. And it doesn't make it that much harder to get off. You take a sledgehammer and beat it a couple times and the flywheel drops. So better to deal with that than have to deal with replacing stuff under warranty. So little trick, do that. Okay, so the flywheel's in, tightened down. I wanted to go over putting the clutch in now. So it doesn't matter if you're putting in a stock clutch, OEM, one from the parts store, performance clutch, dual disc, triple disc. Anytime you put a clutch in, you always want to take some brake cleaner on a rag, and you want to wipe this surface down because they put an oily film on it to keep them from rusting when they're in shipping or on the parts shelf. See, look at all the black stuff on my fingers just from going like that. You can really see it on this pressure plate. See all this stuff? It's real sticky. They put that on there to keep it from rusting. If you throw the whole clutch assembly together like that, the first like 5 miles you drive it, it's going to be slipping like crazy. Ask me how I know, because I've done it. So you always want to take brake clean and make sure that your pressure plate and flywheel surfaces are perfectly clean. And so yeah, I'm going to do that. I got my little alignment tool over here. You get this clutch disc put in. There's a pressure plate side and a flywheel side, and it'll be marked like that one right there. It says flywheel side. So this side of the clutch disc goes up against the flywheel, and you put your alignment tool in. So let me get this cleaned off, and then I'll show you guys that. So I got the clutch disc up there, put the alignment tool in it, and then I put the pressure plate up there, and I got 2 bolts in it, one here and one across, directly across from it up there. And you don't want to tighten them down yet. Just well, first off, you want to make sure, like, these are brand new ones, they have Loctite on them already. You want to Loctite everything. So before you tighten them, you want to put your thumb on the alignment tool. Let's see how you can move the clutch disc. You don't want to tighten this up with it just hanging with gravity. You want to just barely pick this up like that, and then just snug those bolts up. Don't tighten them all the way yet. Just snug them up and make sure this alignment tool can come in and out easily. And as long as you can pull it out and push it right back in, when you go to stab your transmission, it'll just slide right in. So if this binds up, you need to loosen the bolts and just kind of reposition it a little higher up or a little farther down, whatever. Just find the sweet spot. And then you want to tighten these, you know, in an alternating pattern, slowly and evenly, because you don't want to warp the pressure plate. And you'll see these, you'll see the release bearing teeth here, for lack of better words. You'll see them push in as the pressure plate loads up. So that's the proper way to do that. See what I was talking about here? I snugged these bolts up, and this alignment tool that is perfect. That transmission is going to go right into here. It's not going to bind up on anything. So we can get rid of this now, or we can leave it in. It doesn't matter. I'll leave it in until it's done in case it shifts or something. But so now I'm going to go ahead and start all the rest of these. I just got these snugged up just enough to hold it, you know, to test fit this. So I'm going to go ahead and zip them all in now and finish this up. So now that the clutch is in, before I stab the trans, I'm going to try and figure out the four-wheel drive shift bracket, just so I don't have to deal with it while the trans is up in there, because I have to drill some holes or weld some brackets together or whatever. But I'm going to try and figure that out, and then I probably won't record any of that. I'll just probably show the finished product if I can come up with one. I might have to do some brainstorming for a while. And then I'm going to try and get a measurement on how far back the shifter hole needs to be. So I'm going to try and do those two things before I put the trans up in there. Alright guys, so I was messing with this four-wheel drive linkage here. So, where'd it go? Here is part of it, and here's the other part. So this bolts onto, hang on, let me get the camera angled right. So this bolts onto this, like that. And then this bracket is actually broken in half. And this bracket mounts to the original Getrag somewhere right in here. And it actually kind of lines up perfect with that one bolt hole if I drilled out that little casting and threaded it. Or no, I'm sorry. It bolted on somewhere back here, and it lines up perfect that if I drilled that out, that original bolt that goes to this bracket would line up perfectly right there. So I was thinking about how to make a bracket, you know, drill that hole, thread it, and then make a bracket that bolts up here and maybe one down here somewhere. So I decided to get online and do some more research on it, and it turns out there's a website or company, whatever, called Advanced Adapters, and they actually make this bracket already for doing this exact swap, and it's 50 bucks. So I just ordered it, and that saves me the hassle of having to do all this. It'll be here in a few days. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the transmission in, because I think it bolts to like these two holes or these two, and they're little 13 mil or half inch, whatever. I can get them out and put that bracket on and bolt them back in when this is in the truck. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the transmission in. I'm not gonna worry about drive shaft measurements, because in doing all this, I took a total measurement of the length of this transmission and the length of the old one. And because I was trying to find out how far back this originally mounted. And these two transmissions are actually between an 1/8 inch and a 1/4 inch difference, which is plenty of room in the slip yokes on the drive shafts to use the same drive shafts. So it doesn't need, I didn't know that going into this, that the drive shafts are the same, almost the same length. So if I would have done all this research first and got this bracket and the missing 29 spline adapter, if I would have done my research first and got those parts here beforehand, this could have been easily a 4-hour swap. But I kind of just decided to wing it. So what I'm going to do is just get the transmission in, as you know, just go as far as I can. And so yeah, I ordered the transfer case shifter bracket I ordered the cross member adapter bracket that they sell, and then I ordered a 29 spline coupler. So I don't have to figure any of that out. And what's kind of funny, I don't want to like copyright or take anyone's credit, but so after this first gen is done getting swapped, there is another one right there for the same exact thing. And once I get that bracket in, I'm just gonna make another one on my own. It won't look as pretty, but whatever. So I'll see how that one is made professionally. And then apparently the cross member adapter bracket is just a piece of square tubing. So I'll just get a piece of square tubing and make a cross member adapter for the other one out there. And then I'll make that bracket. And don't really get on to me for copying their design, but you know, I can save a buck. These trucks are like 35 years old, so I mean, who cares? But anyway, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna stab the trans, see where the hole, apparently the hole gets cut 4.5 inches farther back. I'm just gonna do some more measurements and verify that before I cut the entire floor pan out of this thing and screw it all up. So, yeah. I should have ordered all this stuff, done a little more research ahead of time. But anyway, now this thing will be sitting in the shop until those parts come in, but oh well, no big deal. So yeah, let's just get it. I guess I can go ahead and replace all these U-joints too. They're all like really, really bad. So we'll just get as far as we can on it until the mailman comes in a couple days. Alright, so I got the transmission in. See, it's got it mated up to the adapter plate and bolted in. And it went in pretty easily. The only thing kind of unexpected was these crossmember mounts on the frame. They were still in, and I got the transmission in through the very back and rolled it up, and the bell housing didn't want to go through these, so I had to take the bell housing off of the transmission, roll it past this, and then bolt the bell housing on, and then put the throw out bearing and throw out fork in it. Other than that, I don't really know how you get around that easily if you were putting like a 5600 or a automatic in it. Luckily, Nv4500s have a removable bell housing, so. But yeah, I cut the hole in the floor. I don't know if y'all can see up in there. Turned out perfect. Probably got a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch of clearance. So I really didn't spend too much time on that, cutting the hole. I just decided I'm gonna get a little piece of sheet metal and self-tap it back in there, and then I'll self-tap the shifter boot down to that, so it won't look too bad. Other than that, now it's pretty much just a waiting game. Like I said, waiting for that 4-wheel drive shifter bracket to come in, the 29 spline coupler, so I can get the transfer case on. Until then, I'm probably just going to leave it up on the trans jack, and I'll get the starter on. I'll get that water leak fixed. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this thing's got a coolant leak. There's a freeze plug blown out that I need to replace. So I'll do that. I'll fill the transmission up with gear oil, put the starter on, and fix the coolant leak, and make sure everything else is good to go on this. And it'll just be a matter of waiting for those parts, crossmember mount, and all that. So it'll be a couple days before I start recording on this video again, maybe a week or so, but yeah, until then, I'll catch y'all later. All right guys, so it's a few days later now, and I got this 29 spline coupler. It goes on the MP205 transfer case. And then the Nv4500 output shaft goes in here. Got new gasket on there. It's got one stud broke off. I tried getting it. I just messed with it a little bit, but it'll be fine. That's about it. So this is where we left off. I mean, it's in the same video for you guys, but for me, it's 3 or 4 days later. So we're gonna get that transfer case put up in there and bolted up. Alright, so I got that transfer case put in there. I got those nasty U-joints swapped out for some brand new ones, both ends. So I'm gonna get that drive shaft put in there now. Drive shaft's in. You can see there's still plenty of room in the slip yoke. I had this thing extended like all the way up here earlier, so plenty of room. If that one fits, confident the front one will fit. So I might do that one next because it doesn't need any U-joints replaced or anything. No, I'll probably leave it out. That way I can still get to that bracket up there when it comes in, the four-wheel drive linkage, because I'll be having to work around the drive shaft. So if anything, I might put the cross member in. We'll see. We will see. All right, guys, so finished this truck up. Just took it on a drive, and I wanted to show you all this four-wheel drive bracket way up in here. So you can see, kinda, I should have got a video of it before I put it on, but it bolts to the top. Bolts to the top of the Nv4500 right there. And then this original bracket bolts up to it, as you can kind of see right there. So I haven't put the linkage in. The linkage runs from that hole to that hole right there. And all I have yet to do is put the front drive shaft in. The cross member mount, I think I can see it better from the back. This is the cross member mount. It's just a piece of square tubing. It comes with new bolts. It bolts to the Nv4500 tail housing, and then you just use, I guess you're supposed to use the original bolts. These are the only ones it came with. These are the original bolts, and they had an L-shaped bracket on them that didn't fit with any of this, so I just hammered them off. And these are all the same. The cross member is the same. It all bolts in. So this pretty much just simulates how tall the Getrag tail housing mount is. So other than that, I put a 6.7 starter on it because the bolt pattern for the starter was different. And if you're gonna buy a starter, don't buy a 5.9 second gen starter. Always go 6.7. They bolt on to second gen adapter plates. A 12 valve clears them. The hot terminal's the same. All you have to do is put a spade connector on the exciter wire for the solenoid. And then we did a new set of hydraulics because the old ones were shot. So yeah, they bolted right on there. I just got them for a 94 to 02 truck, or I guess 94 to 97 with the twist in bracket for the firewall. So yeah, it's pretty much done, other than the drive shaft and the four-wheel drive linkage. I just took it for a drive and it did okay. There's no leaks. I also did a new water pump. And I put in that new engine block heater that was leaking. So we knew that was leaking. I filled up with coolant, and the water pump was leaking too. Replaced both of those. I just drove it about, I don't know, 10 minutes down the road and back. And it was going great until the headlights cut off. As you can see, it's dark outside. So I immediately hit the brakes and they came back on, but I immediately headed back because that was kind of sketchy. Just banging along in an old ragged out first gen steering wheel's going all back and forth and the headlights cut out. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for a Getrag Nv4500 swap. I'm not really gonna go over putting the drive shaft in. I mean, it bolts in. The rear one fit. I'm pretty sure there's enough room in the slip yoke for the front one. And then this is the 4-wheel drive linkage that bracket comes with. It's just a 90-degree threaded rod. There's a clevis right there, or a turnbuckle rather, that this threads into, and then you can set your depth, and it comes with 2 little cotter keys. So yeah, and then this bracket from Advanced Adapters, it comes with instructions and whatnot. So that's what it looks like. That's the shape of it right there. But that's about it, guys. I'm gonna do another one here in a few days. It's out over there. Another 1st gen, same exact job. I got the trans for it, bell housing, adapter plate. Gonna use the same clutch. So yeah, and I'm not gonna buy the crossmember and the shifter adapter for that one. Now that I know the crossmember mount's just a piece of square tubing with some holes drilled, I'll take measurements off of this one before I send it out. And then that little 90-degree bracket, I can build one of those. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch y'all later.